are off and ready to go. This is Grange TV, formerly known as Grange TV, the Fair One podcast, and welcome to all. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be here for our Bellator card, which I'm pretty excited for the main event. Um, yeah, I think. Sorry, I'm just going to get my little information booklet out. So I've got it all that I need. It's 10 p.m. here in Sydney, and I'm going to put my little banner up. So do the intro right now. And welcome to Bellator 263. I actually watched McKee's dad fight in I think it was in Sydney many moons ago. Was it in Sydney? Might have been in Brisbane many moons ago. I think he might have fought, and he may have fought. I'm not sure if that's who he fought. Um, Jai Bradney. I think he fought Jai Bradney, and he won. McKee won. So yeah, I'm interested. I think Bellator is starting to put together some good cards. The guys aren't as well known, but there are some good fighters there. There are some interesting fighters in that division. Interestingly, if I'm not mistaken, let me just say yes. Both Chandler and Primus has a win over Chandler, who's fighting on this card, and so does Patricio Pitbull. Pitbull also has a win over Chandler. So two guys on this card have wins over Chandler. So that's quite interesting. It'd be interesting to see how Pitbull goes against guys in that UFC featherweight division, because I think he'd be, guys like Martin Nguyen as well. I think would be interesting to see against, like, in a cross promotional sort of thing. Oliver Ekman says, "Let's go, boys! Early morning, Fab. What time is it there in Iowa? It is 10 p.m. for me here, so it's not too bad. I just put my daughter to bed, mate. I ate like a pig today. I ate like a pig. Like my wife made some. She made these chorizo like sausage roll things, and like just like a hot dog bun, right? But my wife is very good at cooking and putting stuff together. And she made them with avocado. So they made these like hot dog buns, if you will, with chorizo and with chorizo and sauerkraut, avocado, mustard, like this tomato, diced up tomatoes, mustard and tomato sauce. And mate, they, throughout the day, I've eaten 3 of them. And it's 2 more than any normal human should have eaten, But I ate one just before the show, and it was just delicious, man. Hey, who's fantastic, and I want to get him on the podcast. If people can get him if anyone knows him, he is Amosov. I think he is a ridiculous talent, an absolute ridiculous talent. Really, really, really. Think he's just fantastic, man. Huge fanboy of his. Sage says, "Sup, Fab? How are you?" I'm good, man. How are you? Julian says, "Howdy, coach." Howdy, right back at you guys. Guys, thanks so much for doing this and being on coming and watching with me and having a chat while we watch the fights. I think that's awesome, and I really appreciate you guys watching the fights with me. I'm not going to lie; it was a toss-up between the basketball on TV for the Olympics and this, but I get to watch this with you guys, so I thought let's do this. Sage123 says, "Don't you need your beauty sleep?" I do, my friend. Of all things, I do. I had a big nap with my daughter. Put my daughter to bed earlier in the afternoon, and we had a big nap. But yeah, I'm still tired, man. Fatherhood annihilates me. Julian Obiaha says, "Howdy, coach. Right back at you, sir. How are you?" Joseph says, "Hello, good sir. How was your week, coach? Caught your podcast yesterday, and it was great. Thank you, Joseph. Man, I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you watching and I really appreciate you supporting. Sage says, everyone like the video. Yes, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. Stephen Morgan says, how are we, boys and girls? Nico says, when JS the match, guys? Is it now? The matches are going to kick off soon. Oliver says, it's 7 a.m., not too early. Sage says, holy shit, when Fab takes his glasses off. Joseph says, sorry, boys, but what time is the card on EST? A bit early, isn't it? Or do I have my info wrong? My understanding, like what they gave me, what I got was that the card is on now at 10 p.m. That was my understanding of the situation. But or maybe it's wrong. I don't know. Well, it doesn't. It looks like the whole card is starting now. I don't know what's going on here. Joe Schmo says, what's in the medium cup? In the medium cup is peppermint tea. Randy says, hey, Fab and everyone, happy to be here. Bella Joseph says, Bellator event, I mean. Yeah, the Bellator event is up now. And Randy says, you're such a great dad. You're always with your daughter. Ah, mate. She's a good little girl, mate. It's not a big ask at all. Okay. Oh, I see. I see what's happened here. Stephen Morgan says, sorry, what card are we on about the UFC or Bellator one? We're on, this is a Bellator card. This is a Bellator card. Luis Enrique says, hey, Fab, looking fresh as always. Thank you, man. I don't really feel fresh because it's a bit late in the night. It's a bit of a Bellator MMA light heavyweight Grand Prix. Wow. Julian says, sorry, coach, the card is later tonight. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here with this for me. What time does the card, how many hours until the start of the card? Because it was reported different for us. 1 second. Something's going wrong here, mate. It says Randy T says, hey Fab, I'm in Australia too. Is this Bellator event free to air or pay per view? It's meant to be free to air, as I understood it. We could do it, mate. We can hang out for a while, anyways. But yeah. Stephen Morgan says, yeah, I swear both cards don't start for a couple more hours. Yeah, I know the UFC one doesn't start till tomorrow, but fuck, I don't know what's gonna happen. Joseph says, looks like this is the start of a 24-hour The Fair One podcast marathon. Get your popcorn ready. Julian Obaha says it starts 9 p.m. Central Time US. So let me see. 9 p.m. Central Time US. Okay, let's see. Fuck. Then I don't even know anymore because when they put it up, it said 10 p.m. here. So yes, what do we do? So I guess we have a let's have a chat about the card. That's what we can do for now. Then I suppose. I don't even understand how the fuck that happened. Let me see this. Bellator 263. Man, it says here for us that it kicks off at 10 p.m. Australian time. That's what it was advertised for us. Um, it says Pitbull versus McKee main card kicks off at 10 p.m. on Saturday night. So here I am. Here I am here to do the podcast like advertised, but it's wrong. Um, Bro, have I seen championships, won championships, Victoria Lee? I have. I interviewed her brother. Her brother was on this as well, Christian Lee. So yeah. So Joseph says somebody's losing their job, making coach lose some sleep. Mate, what do you do with this situation? I just don't know. I'm enjoying having this conversation, but yeah, now I got another message saying a Bellator card won't start till midnight. So what do we do? Anyways, well, we can have a chat about. Dan Goldson says my tab betting ticket says starts at 10:30 a.m. NZT. Yeah, man, I don't fucking know anymore. I don't know. There's nothing I can do, but I tell you what, I will be here tomorrow for the UFC card for sure, 100%. Um, I'm I'm disgusted. I don't know. I'm surprised. I'm disgusted. I definitely will not be staying up all night with this. So I don't know what's going to happen. But I like that there's so many people on here. Can you guys tell me what you think about Pitbull versus McKee, anyways? Joseph says 24-hour the Fair One podcast marathon is looking better every minute, coach. Oliver says, yeah, it says on ESPN it doesn't start till 9 p.m. That's 14 hours from now. That's a long stream, mate. Imagine all the views we'd get. Yeah, I don't fucking know how this like when I saw it advertised, when we saw it advertised, it said 10 p.m. and in Australia, 10 p.m. on Saturday night. That was on one of the advertisements that we ran with that. So I mean, we are we are way ahead of fucking schedule. Let's talk about the fight. Tell me how you guys think it's gonna go. You know the thing is, man, Pitbull. Yes, Pitbull's got the power, but Pitbull's a lot smaller, man. Oh, you haven't seen a lot of McKee matches. He's good, man. His dad was a good fighter too. Um, but the one thing that it's going to be interesting is how he handles that size because he's a lot smaller. Like Pitbull's like a short guy, man. Um, Dan Golston says, I think AJ is younger and bigger, and at the press conference he appeared to fluster Pitbull. I think AJ gets him. Yeah, look, man, with the press conference stuff, people react different to different things. So don't look into that too much. A lot of that doesn't matter come fight night. But I do agree that he's a lot bigger, man, and he is younger too. He's a fair bit taller. Like he'd be about my height, McKee, versus Pitbull, who's not a big guy at all. Um, I'd be really interested to see how he fares in that featherweight division, though, Pitbull. And there are a couple of other people like Martin Yu and people like that. I'd be really interested to see how those guys would fare in that middleweight division, in that featherweight division. So no, that's my take on it. I'm fucking Khan says, greeting from WA, mate. Do you think McKee is a bit too early to face the likes of Pitbull given the experience? Um, I'm assuming you're from WA, Western Australia. If so, welcome, Frontier man. Welcome. Um, fucking Aaron Pico's another guy who I'm a big fan of, in that around that weight as well, that's a dangerous human being. Um yeah, he's a dangerous man. Um do I think it's a little bit too early? We're going to see if it is too early, but I think that Pitbull is a step up for sure, man. From anyone that he's fought, like Pitbull's a legit contender for any. Like if he went to if he went to UFC, I don't know how he'll do, but he would do well. Like he's got wins over Chandler, he's got wins over some really good guys. So he'd do well in the featherweight division anyway. I don't know that McKee has proven himself to be at that level yet. Um, so that's my take on that. I just want to check another thing here since we're talking about Bellator. I want to see a ranking here before I say anything. So Pico's ranked number 6 at the Bellator featherweight rankings, and I think Pico himself is another guy that would be very, very competitive. He's got a lot of potential. People call him a bust, but I think he's far from a bust, man. He's very, very good, and he's got a bright future. I don't know what's going to happen with him there. There are some good guys in that featherweight division in Bellator. Um, Dan Goldstein says, "Yeah, I get that, but I've never seen people get that steamed before. It was startling. I don't know, but we're 14 hours too early, apparently." Joseph says, "All right, gentlemen, gonna go for my road work. See you later, coach. Nice catching you today. Have a great night, day, everyone." Thank you, sir. Yeah, Robert Cusack says the card starts in 9 hours. We were on for us. Whatever advertisement came through didn't look good. Oliver Ekman says Pitbull has a lot of experience as well. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Dan Goldstein says both AJ and Pitbull would do well in the UFC. Pitbull's a stud for sure. I'm biased because I have money on McKee. Man, they would both do very, very well. I'd like to see Aaron Pico as well at featherweight. I think there's a whole bunch of guys there. Ironically, I think that division, the featherweight division, has a lot of guys that would do quite well in the UFC. SS says, "Bro, let's go 14 hours, champ. This would be fantastic in lockdown." Nick Dedio says, "One and Bellator always show their cards for free." We get Bellator cards over here on uh on channel 10 for free. But yeah, I will not be staying up for 14 hours, let me tell you. Nico Dedio says, yeah, so one we get the one cards. You can watch them on the app. Wow. I'm just watching some shots. The other thing that threw us off is as well, it's on TV, but it's not the UFC 263. So Beetlejuice says, ha ha ha, 14 hours. Man, it said like 10 p.m. and nobody, when I put it up, nobody said, no, it's not. Like I put the time up, everything, because we read the advertisement here and we put it up. And nobody said like, nah, it's not. Everyone's like, okay, cool. Dan Goldstein says the UFC dropped the ball with Usman Nurmagomedov and not locking him in before Bellator did. There's another one, in that kind of the weights and that. Yes, I agree. X White says, "I'm here, Fab. Got 2 cartons of beer. Should last 18 hours." Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. Well, then, I guess we can continue to talk about fighting, man, because I can talk about fighting all day. Yeah, but yeah, I agree with Usman Nurmagomedov. He's very, very good as well. Um, I think that's one of, you know what, I've been watching the Olympics, and I remember a few years ago, like not a few years ago, I remember being as a kid, right? The like basketball was not really contested outside of the US. It wasn't really like a thing. The US could send a college team over to the Olympics and they'd win a gold medal. Um, and I remember soccer as well was dominated by a few countries in Europe and a few countries in South America, and that's changed. Like soccer's become more global. Even more global than before. You still got the powerhouses. Don't get me wrong, but but it's not like what it used to be before. Um, and that's just because people improving, people changing. But basketball's become so much more global in the last. I'm going to say, me being I've played basketball, grew up playing basketball, but it's become even more global in the last probably 15 years. And just watching these Olympics and watching other countries and watching how competitive other countries are, it's it's changing. The landscape's changing. And why I say this, why I bring this up, is because of when I'm watching when I'm watching MMA and how much more global it's becoming. You get champions from different places. But also people being signed to different organizations. People starting to have different options. Other than just the UFC. So it's interesting. Um, Beetlejuice says everyone was just happy to see you at 10 at night. You see Connor's recent tweet. I like Connor and his bullshit, but his last tweet was over the line. I haven't seen his last tweet unless you're talking about the thing he said about Khabib's dad. Here's the thing that I have to say on that. This is all I'm going to say. One, I don't like that shit. That's the first part. But two is like Connor was always saying shit that was past the line. He was always saying stuff, and I never really was a fan of it. But because he was winning and he was on top, there was always that was always cool. But there's heaps of shit that was over the line. But because he was right on top and it was okay, no one said anything. It was all right. But he was already saying stuff about people's wives. He was already saying stuff about Khabib's wife. He's already saying personal shit about people. So it's just one of those things, man. Like I don't know. Oliver, I don't agree with it. By the way, I'm just saying like it just changes because he's losing now. So when you do that and you're losing, it doesn't look good. Beetle just says everyone. No, Oliver Ekman says Fab sources saying that Gaethje versus Chandler is targeted for UFC 268. That's the Usman Covington card. Um, Gaethje versus Chandler, I think, is a crazy fight. I don't know who wins that fight. Where the problem there for me is Chandler gets kicked bad in the legs. He's got a wide stance. He's got a long, wide, and narrow stance, which leaves him susceptible to kicks. But I believe he can put Gaethje on his back. Gaethje is not off his back. He's not like um, he's not a great grappler off his back. I'm not saying he's not a great grappler. He's probably a great grappler, but he's not a great grappler off his back. He's going to scramble, try and get back to his feet. And I see Chandler being able to put him on his back. I see, and even if he can't take him down and handle him like on the ground, which I think Chandler can, he can break the rhythm of Gaethje coming forward. The other thing is they both hit hard, but that game where they're playing in the pocket like that, I think Chandler has the option to throw that right hand left hook thing that he does. He switches into that stance and throws a left hook, or he throws the straight right to the body, and he can hit the blast double from there. So I think there's some of the spaces where Chandler can win, which makes it very, very dangerous for him. Because you can't really, in the opening stanzas, play that war of attrition game like, I'll take one of your shots and give you a shot with Chandler at lightweight because he hits too hard. Having said that, though, there's a lot of ways to counter that. Some of those combinations that he throws when he throws a right hand down to the body, down the middle, those check hooks and jabs and whatnot are very good counters to that. And the leg kicks from Gaethje would play a big part in that. I don't know how exactly it'll play out. That's why I find that fight very interesting. But I think if Chandler can get the fight to the ground, it's gonna only benefit Chandler. Stephen Morgan says, "Have you seen any standout boxers from the Olympics, or do you not really watch it?" Man, the first time I got to watch the Olympics was today. I watched the dual meet of the judo dual meet, which France won. Absolutely loved it. and I watched basketball. I watched Australia versus Germany, and I was really impressed. It was a cool game. And that was one of those things, man. Like the Germans, like were better than I thought they'd be in basketball. I haven't watched basketball for a long time, and better than I remembered them being. And it just brought to my mind how much that it's becoming a global sport, even more and more and more every time. Like they've always had the Euro League. Don't get me wrong, the Europeans have the Euro League. The Yugoslavians were always good. The Lithuanians were always good. But you're getting guys that getting MVP that are Europeans now. You know what I mean? And um, there's a whole bunch of guys that get through the first round draft. I remember when Luke Longley was like the only Australian to play in the NBA, and it was a massive fucking thing, and blah blah blah. Now you've got guys. We kid took sixth in the draft from Australia. Had Ben Simmons go first. This Bogut. You've had a whole bunch of really good guys come through. So it's that's interesting. But no, I haven't really seen any standout boxers. Not because there aren't any, because I haven't been following it. Beetle just says, "What happens with the women's basketball Oz versus China? Heard the news say, heard the news they said dodgy decision to China." It's one of those things, eh? Like we always talk about those. I again, I didn't watch the whole match or anything, but yeah, it looked like a really tough call against Australia with 2 minutes to go. With 2 minutes to go, with 2 points of difference, and no time to go. So I don't know, but that's those things, man, that happen when there's still a level of subjectivity to a decision that's going to be made. I don't know. It seemed like a dodgy call, but um, Nico says Sonnen said something about MMA should be in the Olympics in the future. I mean, I we when we talk about this, I don't know. I'd probably say that BJJ might be ahead of it, like submission grappling. I think it's got a lot to do with viewership from people. So MMA's definitely got huge amounts of viewership, but I don't know. Well, they're talking about kickboxing and Muay Thai being in the Olympics in the next one. So I I don't know. I really don't know if it will be in the Olympics. In fairness, though, wrestling was the first sport, but pancration prior to that, which is MMA, was the sport of the Olympics. With and wrestling came from that. So, I mean, you should have it in the Olympics. I think it's probably the most Olympic sport. I think the in the Olympics it said you will run, wrestle, and throw. That's what you're meant to do. So I think combat sports are at the very core of the Olympics. I don't know if they want to have it in um, in the Olympics, but I think it'll be very far removed from MMA as we know it. I think. Dan Goldstein says Bellator has a few good Russian fighters. Their roster is going to be full of Russian champs in a few years. And these new Dagestani fighters are really good strikers too. Usman is crisp. Agree with you on everything there. Gaethje going to kill the legs. Ha ha ha, says Nico. Yes, I think that's what Gaethje's going to go for. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that fight on the feet though. Do you get what I mean? I don't know because Chandler's got good wrestling. He's got a good blast double. I don't think he's scared of Gaethje's submission attempts, like guillotines on the way down. He's not scared of Gaethje on the ground. I think that any time that there's like the jiu-jitsu scrambles on the ground occurring, I believe that Chandler will win those. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. I also believe that if Chandler can put Gaethje on his back, he's going to be in a lot of trouble, and that's going to take a lot of the power away from Gaethje as well. Um, Charles Victorinic says, appreciate the morning commentary, Fab. Cheers. No, thank you, sir, and thank you for watching and listening. Dan Goldstein says Chandler better sell his soul for the takedowns because Gaethje will kick the bejesus out of his calf if he doesn't. That is true. That is true. But like Chandler's no joke either. You know what I mean? He hits super hard. It was like a fraction, a bee's dick away from him putting Oliveira away. It wasn't very. It was like not much, and he'd be the champion right now. You know, so and he wasn't like Oliveira got the best positions he could possibly get on the ground, and Chandler survived it, and he survived it under the conditions where he was in the worst situation it could have been. Um, Oliveira took him down. Oliveira took his back, etc., 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 etc. And they were dry, and Chandler survived that. So looking at that, I think I don't see Gaethje really giving him any sort of threat on the ground, right? Like that. On the way in, Gaethje can knock him into next week, though. Knees, uppercuts, all sorts of shots. But I think that Chandler, if he can cut that distance, I see him trying to get that takedown. Um, T-Ball Paul says, I like the idea of MMA in the Olympics, but could you imagine a top level fighter having 4 fights in a week? That's what I'm saying to you. It won't be like you're not going to have 5 fives. You know, it's not going to be five. You know, it's going to be like 3 3-minute rounds. You know what I mean? I don't see it being like how we know it. How the UFC, Bellator, those kind of unified rules. It's not going to be like that. Um, it's a actual term, guys. Bees dick. Um, so Chris Gee says, "What's a hidden game plan for Rob to win the title?" I don't know, mate. I don't work with Rob anymore, but I'm sure he's he'll do well in the fight. I predict he'll win, but that's me. I think he'll win. But I think Israel's a fantastic fighter. Dan Goldstein says Gaethje only needs to keep the fight upright long enough to land 5 or 6 leg kicks at that point. I think Chandler loses his mobility, but it's a hell of a fight. Yes, but in and around that happening, Gaethje has to not get hit with one of Chandler's sledgehammers, because if he lands with those sledgehammers, he's putting Gaethje away as well. You know what I mean? Or dropping him on his back, hurting him real bad. So that's a situation, because while it's standing and he can land those kicks, and you're absolutely right about like the dangers that he possesses with landing those kicks. But at any stage, Chandler can land a big bomb. You know, as you saw him do it to Dan Hooker, you saw it do it to Charles Oliveira. Chris Greer says, if Chandler has half the finesse of Khabib, what the fuck? I don't. I see Gaethje piecing him up and defending, but yeah, we'll see. We will see. I I don't know exactly who I'd pick in that fight, because, like I said, I think it's also a clash of styles in many ways. So I don't know who I'd pick. I don't know how exactly I'd pick them. Um, because I think there's a very clear ways for each one of them to win. I do think that I do think that he can. I do think that he can hurt him standing up. Both of them can hurt each other standing up, but I do think that there's a marked difference on the ground. Once it's on the ground, I think Chandler has a much bigger advantage, and I think that Chandler's wrestling is a little more current than Gaethje's per se. Um, Nico Dedio says, "Is Strickland stand up really good?" It's good. It's very good. But I don't know. Again, I don't know if he's going to beat Uriah Hall. I think Uriah Hall's stand up is really good. Again, clash of styles. Um, the thing that Strickland's stand up is good. He'll walk in, and not a lot of people in MMA are going to beat him in a boxing match. You know, the way boxing with 4-ounce gloves on, not many people are going to beat him. You know, he's got a funny kind of style where he's like, he got knocked out with a wheel kick by Dos Santos, but and he's susceptible to getting kicked, right? That style of his is susceptible to getting kicked. because he's kind of like I was saying this before. He's kind of like this and like a bit like a kangaroo with his head back, and he takes a jab to give a jab. But what he throws really well is that 1-2 down the middle. Like he throws that 1-2 really, really well, and he's got really good timing on it. You know, he doesn't put a lot on it. He doesn't wind up the punches. He kind of like the Diaz brothers a little bit. He doesn't like wind up the punches. So he's in your face, ba 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 ba, and he's in your range, so you can't hit him. He is going to get hit like the Diaz brothers, but you have to hit him through that barrage of awkward timed punches. You know, you can't get the timing correct. Where I see that being an advantage for someone like Uriah Hall is he's faster with the circling, he's faster with the kicks. He's Uriah Hall is very fast in like a small circle where he can spin and move in that. So Uriah Hall, look for him to feint and then come in with the spinning wheel kicks, spinning heel kicks, spinning back kicks. Look for him to do all of those off the back of feints. Look for him to throw a feint of a jab, like pretend he's going to jab and spin straight away because Sean moves his head back, you know. So that's Strickland's stand up. It's good. I think this is going to be a real big test for him against Uriah Hall to see where he's at with it. It's interesting because they've been sparring partners before, and here's another interesting thing. I think they're both guys that it's hard to get a read on their timing the first time you fight them. And you can get other people in, but it's not real. It's not the same thing. But they've sparred with each other a lot, and sparring means everything and means nothing as well. So that's going to be interesting. I really do think that's going to be very interesting, that one. And it's going to tell us where Strickland's at. Like for me, one of the things, but then I think he had a motorbike accident afterwards, was seeing Strickland fight Tom Breese, who at the time was like really, he had a whole bunch of problems with his knees since then, Tom Breese. But when he and Strickland fought, um, Tom Breese was a real up and comer, man. He had a lot of potential. He had a lot of potential. And Strickland beat him. And I believe it was a split decision. I remember watching that fight because I knew about Tom Breese and I knew how good he was. And I thought, okay, let's see, blah, 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 blah. And Strickland beat him. And he beat him with an awkward, frustrating style that you I didn't think would beat Tom Breese. Do you get what I mean? I didn't think would beat Tom Breese. And he did, and he beat him. And then he had he lost to Usman, which he lost to Usman the way everyone loses to Usman kind of thing. So I think he's got a lot of. He's one of those guys, man, that gets it done, and you're always thinking like, I don't know if he's going to beat this guy. So I think Uriah Hall is going to be a really big test for him. A really really big test, and it's going to tell us where he's at. I think if he can go out there, pressure Uriah Hall, kick with him enough to not let Uriah Hall have that length and that distance, so that he can start pressuring Uriah Hall and throwing those combinations and having that boxing work and pushing Uriah Hall up against the cage and making it ugly. I think he can get that win. I don't know that as far as like if they were to have a kickboxing match in the middle of the octagon with Uriah Hall being able to set a pace and a distance that he wants, then it's going to be very, very bad night for Strickland. T-Ball Paul said, no, I haven't seen Tombstone Ekman. Sorry. T-Ball Paul says, what do you think the chances of the winner of Saturday's featherweight bout calling out one of the UFC guys, Max Volk Ortega, in the post-fight interview? Zero. I don't see that happening at all. Charles Victorinic says, which of the next generations of Dagestani fighters, because they're not going to do a cross promotional thing, so I don't see that happening. I'd love to see it. Honestly, I think like I said, if Pitbull were to win, I'd love to see him fight one of those. I'd love to see him fight Volkanovski. He's the champion at the moment. I think Volkanovski would win, but I'd still like to see that fight. Charles Victorinic says, which of the next generation of Dagestani fighters do you see getting a title first? I don't know if any of them has Khabib's recipe down pat. Man, someone said this the other day, and it's almost blasphemous nowadays to say anything that doesn't, that you're not saying, Khabib is, amazing, which I think Khabib is amazing. I always thought he was amazing. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm trying to say on this is, if you look at some like Dustin Poirier has probably fought more high caliber guys in his career than Khabib has. That isn't to say that Khabib doesn't deserve his record. That doesn't mean that Khabib isn't the best lightweight. I think but Khabib's the best lightweight of all time, hands down. Probably one of the best fighters to ever do it, hands down. But to go 29-0, it's not just your skills. To do that, a lot of that is circumstantial. A lot of that is just you didn't get knocked out when you got hit. You didn't. The Gleason Tibau fight, if again a bee's dick, and he would have lost that decision. Would that have changed the outcome of who Khabib is? Of course not. But like these small things that happen as well for you to get a record of 29-0. You know what I mean? I don't think that everyone that he fought on his way to the UFC was extremely high level. I think that a lot of people, but it was smart and they built him up properly. And it was all, none of this is a criticism. I think that all of it was done perfectly. You know what I mean? But a lot of that, you only have to, like Islam, you walk into a right hand, walk into a flying knee. And with Khabib's style, it could have happened, man. It could have happened along the way, but it didn't. And he won. And so I think, like, when you say they'll be like, which one of them has Khabib's recipe? Well, the thing is, they're not Khabib. Khabib, whilst Makhachev has similarities to Khabib, they might have tactical um similarities in that they both eventually want the fight on the ground. The strategy to employ those tactics is completely different. The way the two of them fight is completely different. The way, even once they're on the ground, the way that they fight on the ground is completely different. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I also think I think there's a lot of guys going to come out of that region in the next 10 years, like a lot of really good guys. Elia says, are you going to be more nervous about Rob fighting for the title than the other fights, or is a fight and you don't care what's on the line besides health? About Rob fighting for a title than his other fights, or than the other fights on that card? I don't work with Rob anymore. Like, I'll be nervous for him, of course. I don't want him to lose. I don't want him to get hurt. But I as like the reason I'm answering like this is I don't know if you think I still work with him because I don't. Yeah. So yeah, I hope he doesn't lose for sure. Chris Gree says, I'm surprised there is not like a next GSP that is a next level game plan smart. Just takes the easiest path always. I I don't know that this is the other thing. All the fighters want the easiest path always. Not all of them have the skill to do it. GSP has had the skill to do it. He wasn't a big puncher either. He wasn't a big puncher. He wasn't like he was going to win those slugfests either. So he wasn't a big puncher. He was long and he had a good blitz in and out game with a great double leg and decent jiu-jitsu, especially on top. So his ability to jab, what he'd do would jab like a fencer. And when people would start to engage and try and jab back with him, he was able to blitz and make and cut that distance, hit the double leg or the single leg, push him up against the cage. He was an incredibly physically strong, gifted guy. Take the fight to the ground. And it's not like everyone has the physical attributes to fight like a GSP or to fight like a Khabib. That and GSP was very, 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 very fit. Very, very fit. And a lot of that is genetic as well. Like it's not just your ability to, but when you hit a takedown and you get on top of someone, you rest, and also GSP, man, he had some, there were some close fights there that again could have gone the other way, or in some close calls in some fights that could have gone the other way. Tucker Roman says, "Do you think Lima's weight change from middleweight and welterweight affected his performance to for Amasov, similar to Roy Jones Jr. versus Tava?" Could have, it might have, it might have, but I just the fight that I saw with Amasov and Amasov was, and I'm a huge fan of the Lima brothers, but Amasov was like the better fighter by a fair stretch. And he had made some adjustments, Lima did, but generally, a lot of the times, both Lima brothers will go up against the cage themselves. Like they'll capitulate a lot of that middle ground and go up against, like push their own back against the cage, and be in a position where they'll throw calf kicks from there. Um, and it's not like he improved on that a lot. He didn't fight in the same way that he usually does, but still, Amasov just on another level, man. Just really on another level. He's very, very, very impressive guy. Um, Tucker Roman says, safe to say that Pitbull Frere has better submissions compared to Aldo. I understand that Aldo beat Cabrinha, but when it comes to MMA, Pitbull has 12 varied submission wins. Example, Sanchez and Strauss. It depends who you're fighting, dude. It just depends who you're fighting. Doesn't mean those guys aren't as good. It just depends on who you're fighting, like, um, yeah, just it depends who you're fighting. Like Aldo's jiu-jitsu is like legit. I know dudes that have trained with him and everything. His jiu-jitsu is very, very good. And the Aldo has a lot of stoppages, like knockout stoppages, the really good use of his leg kicks. I don't know. But the it's a weird kind of comparison because both those guys are very good at jiu-jitsu. Both those guys are very good. But their style's very different. Especially early on, Aldo was very reliant on those leg kicks, like really, really reliant on the leg kicks. So they're just a different kind of fighter. Um, Charles Victorian says, just finished watching another UFC fighters podcast, and Fab's analysis is leagues ahead. Let it be known. Sir, thank you so much. You were so flattering. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you very, very much. Um, Ice Out says, the fact that they sparred hard a lot means they will go at it. It might mean that, or it might mean that they both understand their difference, like they both understand their strengths, and it could be like a non-engaging fight. You don't know, so who knows? Who do I have? Dan Hardy versus John Wayne Parr in what? If it's in Muay Thai, John Wayne Parr. If it's in MMA, Dan Hardy. Chris Greer says, I'll pay more attention to Strickland. He's good, man. He's very, very good. But this is one of those situations where it's like, all right, now we're going to see how good. You know what I mean? Like, if he goes out there and pastes Uriah Hall with that style, I'll be fucking impressed. It's a tough style for it's interesting, man, because it's a tough style for Uriah Hall to counter. He doesn't like being pressured into the cage and whatnot. But it's also a good style for Uriah Hall because it's a guy that stands upright, pulls his head back a little bit. You know what he's going to do. He's not going to shoot the double. He's not going to push you into the cage like wrestling wise. He's not going to push you into the cage. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I do think it's going to be a tough fight. I do think, like, I don't know if it'll go the distance, but man, Sean Strickland's a tough, tough man. So I don't know. I really don't know who's going to win that fight. I'm interested. Um, X says, "Isn't Bellator 263 in like 14 hours?" It is, yeah, man. It is. ISAD says, "Yeah, Fab's on here scaring the fuck out of everyone." Grip says, "Great comments, Fab. I see Chandler getting past the kicks of Justin and finishing him in two. It could happen. That's the game. That's the fight. That's what's going to happen. None of us know what's going to happen. We can guess, we can speculate, we can make educated decisions, and have educated opinions, but we don't know. We don't know that's what's going to happen, you know? Um, Oliver Ekman says, Jesus, Fab, put the muscles away. Oh my God. Chris Grease says 10 and 0, laugh out loud. Isat says, preach, Fab. So I'm just skipping a few. The Hungarian Hustler says, good evening, Fab. Been locked down here in Brisbane for a few days. So what better than the Fair One podcast to chill to? Yeah, man, like honestly, if we just sit here having a little chat, that's all good as well, man. Like on the thing for us, it's for me anyways, when we read it for us, it said 10 p.m. and it's not 10 p.m. Charles says, a bee's dick, truly getting to the heart of the issue. This is the content we are here for. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, very, very much. Um, Chris Greer says, people will pick up on Khabib's hip and leg work on the ground, I hope. There are guys that were, this is the thing, dude. There were guys that were trying to do that before, and there were guys that were doing that before, tying up the legs and stuff like that. But Khabib was just so fucking good at it. Do you know what I mean? He was just so good at it. Um, what are the benefits of Pitbull's karate stance and how he stays in the center of the cage? I think the Pitbull is a guy that he's like a physically strong guy that is like, when I say a bully, he's not like a bully in a bad way, but that's he takes the center of the cage because he hits hard. He's got good jiu-jitsu. That's how he fights. He fights like that. You know what I mean? It's not. Um, he's not a guy that's going to counter your shots and this and that. He's a mean dude that wants to come forward, kind of like a Chandler in a way. Dingus Dangus says, hello, Fab. How goes? Very good, sir. How are you? Isat says, anytime someone have a relationship with watching those fights are completely different. Think if it was a friend of yours. Oh, at Elia. Okay, cool. So Sank says, greetings from Toronto, Fab. Greetings to you, my friend. Matei says, hey, Fab, what do you think are key to neutralize a technical striker that builds their striking of feints on the feet, such as Volkanovski, Adesanya, and other city kickboxing boys? You can't say that as well because they're all different. All those, like, just the city kickboxing guys are all different to begin with. But let's just go off, say, for example, a technical striker that builds striking off feints. It depends what kind of striker they are, because you can build off feints, but do you hit hard? Do you not hit hard? Are you a guy that, what strikes do you throw? It depends. So, like, say someone specifically like Volkanovski and Adesanya are completely different. They're completely different guys. They're both good technical strikers, but they're not. They're not like that's like saying Romero and Usman are similar because they're both wrestlers, but they're not. They're completely different. Um, but there's a couple of things. One thing, it depends who you're talking about, like, and depends what skills you have, But one of the big things is you got to kick with a kicker. If a guy kicks and you don't kick back, then he's going to take that space. You're capitulating that space. So you've got to be able to kick with a kicker. Doesn't mean that you sit there and have a kicking match with them, but you've got to kick because that space otherwise belongs to the kicker and he's going to dictate everything. And if you kick, they have to do something. They have to lift the leg to check it. They have to move out of the way. You might hit them, you know what I mean? But you have that's the first thing. You've now kicked with a kicker, and that allows you to put something behind that. You're able to now you've kicked. They had to check. Now you can come into their space, and it also means that you're not letting them sit there in that space fainting on you. All these things are easier said than done. They're not easy. Just because you say this is the game plan, it doesn't mean it's going to work, dude. It doesn't mean it's going to work, and it just depends on who you're going to fight. I think when you saw the fight, talking about Israel, you saw the fight with oh my god, what's his name? I always forget. He hasn't even got a hard name. I just always forget his name. Um, I'll tell you right now. Um, Justin Wilness. I didn't even have to look it up. I remembered it, but I always forget his name. When he is that him? I'm not sure. Let me make sure that it is him. But when Israel fought him in Glory, it was a close fight. Um, but one of the things, and I'm not here to discuss whether or not you think Israel beat him or didn't beat him, because it's beside the point. The way that the guy fought him, he stayed in Israel's face, and uh, he didn't let Israel dictate the space, the time, etc. He was the one that would make sure. Yeah, just Jason Wilness. That's right. He was the one that would come into that boxing space. He'd punch, cover up, and then throw the leg kicks on Israel. Now, great, but there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong with that as well, you know. But he was also the shorter fighter in that fight, you know. Um, and that's what he did. He kicked and he pressured and he came inside Israel's space, you know. And this we're talking about kickboxing. The gloves are a little bit bigger. The punches don't get through the gaps as easily. But and you've got to have the skills to be able to weather those storms, to be able to take those shots the way he was taking them off Israel and then landing the leg kicks. It was a close fight too. The decision arguably could have gone the other way as well, you know. So you know these are hard things though. You know they're not that easy. There's some of the things you can do, but kicking with a kicker is an important one. It's hard to say Volkanovski or Adesanya because they're fucking very very different guys. Very different guys. Um, the other thing is with I'm going to tell you with Volkanovski. Volkanovski's like low key great striker. Like a lot of people only just finding out now that he's a really good striker. A lot of people thought he was a great wrestler. Um, but really, he's actually a better kickboxer that can wrestle. You know, it's just that when he'd go for the takedowns, a lot of times being so strong that he is, he'd be able to get those takedowns. You know, there's a few things that he does really well with the wrestling, but if you look at him when he fought Chad Mendes, he couldn't out wrestle Chad Mendes. You know, he couldn't really out wrestle Aldo the way that he would have wanted to. Couldn't really out wrestle Max the way he wanted to necessarily, but he could strike with all of them, and that's what a lot of people only just now starting to see. He's actually a better striker, but masquerading as a wrestler. He's a kickboxer masquerading as a wrestler. And I say that with all respect to him because he is a good wrestler and he is a good grappler. And people are like, he's a wrestler grappler guy. No, no, no. This guy's a good kickboxer. This guy's a kickboxer, you know. And long before City Kickboxing, he was always down here with Joe, you know. And um, yeah, always was like a kickboxer guy that he was like a strong, big guy that'd get you down on the ground and beat you up because people couldn't stop the takedown. You know what I mean? They couldn't stop the takedown. Once they were on the ground, they couldn't stop his ground and pound. But he's actually a better kickboxer, in my opinion, than he is a grappler. That's what I believe also throws people off with his striking because when they're in there with him, and they're all worried, this or expecting rather than worried, expecting this to be a fucking him a grappling match, whatever. But he doesn't need it to be a grappling match because he's actually a better kickboxer. So it's different as well the way that they go about their striking, Israel and Volkanovski. Very, very different. Dingus Dangus says Fab is on those USADA approved supplements. Mate, I'm on my wife's cooking supplements, mate. My wife's cooking is pretty fucking good, man. I have to say, like I said earlier, the podcast, man, I ate so much today, man. My wife made these chorizo, like hot dog rolls, right? But she made them with chorizo, um, sauerkraut, avocado, and tomatoes, like these cut up, like these little diced tomatoes all over the roll, and avocado, sauerkraut, this like green chili sauce, and then mustard and tomato sauce. And I had 3 of those today, which is 2 more than anyone should have. Um, Take says, what other fights are excited to see on the Bellator 263 card? The Primus fight and the Nurmagomedov fight. William says Pitbull's championship is fantastic. I'm from Brazil. Welcome, my friend. Welcome. Aaron Rosa says, I got McKee. Believe the hype. Man, like I said, I saw his dad fight back in the day. And then he and his dad fought on the same card. So Sank says, if you could only practice one martial art, what would it be? Probably folk style wrestling. Probably folk style, like you see in the wrestle in the US, like that. Probably that. If it was just one that they had to do, I think they've got, um, obviously all the fitness, etc. But they've got the takedowns on the ground. So I mean, on the feet. So you have that thing where you can take someone to the ground, and then on the ground they've got a lot of escapes and riding times, and like it's a different control on the ground. So I really like that. Um, I if you mean if you include combat sambo and stuff like that, I'm not including combat sambo, Japanese jiu-jitsu, or any of that, because that's kind of like you're not just doing one martial art. That's kind of MMA, so it's kind of cheating. So if you're talking about one single discipline, like a single discipline martial art, because they're multi-discipline martial arts, right? They're different. So when you incorporate striking and grappling into the one martial art, it's now we're talking mixed martial arts again. So I would say to you, if it's like that, if they're the realms that we're picking, I would go with the folk style wrestling myself. There's a lot of competition in that as well. There's heaps. So yeah, that one probably. But I think judo is a fantastic martial art. I think BJJ is a really good martial art. I think Olympic freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, they're all fucking man. And it depends your build, right? If you're a big, strong fucking guy and you can do Greco, you'll you Greco-Roman and judo on the street are fucking scary. People think like, and your ability to apply it is important too. Your ability to apply it. Not everyone you can be good at a sport martial art, but not be good in a fight. You might not be good having an actual fight. That's a different story. But I'm saying like Greco-Roman and judo, they're good too, man. I don't know. I think you have to be able to grapple on the ground. Now, if you're going to add submissions and everything, I think the best thing for you to do is wrestling and jujitsu. That's what I would say to you. Or do yeah, wrestling and jujitsu. I think that's the best thing you can do. But if I had to just pick one, I'd say Greco or any of the wrestling as well, because you know what? Like when people say, "Oh, what about submissions and stuff on the ground?" I think, dude, if you got an Olympic level wrestler or a good wrestler, doesn't have to be Olympic level. If you got a good wrestler put you on the ground. If you're not a good jiu-jitsu guy on the street, he'll punch the fuck out of you. He'll hurt you. He'll break you into little bits. He'll rip your arms off like you're a little fucking spider. Of course, you're going, oh, but my mate's a jiu-jitsu. Of course, man. If you're a black belt, good level black belt jiu-jitsu guy on the ground, you're going to tap out everyone. But that's not the way the world works. And not every guy you get jumped by is a jiu-jitsu black belt. Nor is it like this is the other thing. Your jiu-jitsu takedowns are going to be good enough to take down normal people on the street, anyways. You're not going to take down an all-American wrestler with it, of course not. But most people walking around are not that. So if you do any of those martial arts, you'll be sweet. I personally would pick folk style, the rides on the ground, the control on the ground. They'll still break your arm, dude. They'll put a half Nelson on as hard as they can, and you won't be able to spin. If you sink both hooks in on someone, right, and do a half Nelson and don't let them turn, you rip their shoulder to shreds. Um, Thoughts on the grappling creativity of AJ McKee? I like it. I like it. I think it's cool to see someone that comes from that second generation of fighting. You know what I mean? Of no holds barred fighting. I think that's going to have a. It's not just his grappling creativity. I think he's got a lot of creativity in his fighting, and I think he's physically gifted, and he's also got that input from having been around it forever. Um, do I know who Ty's fighting? I think they're talking about him fighting Walt Harris. T-Ball says, what does it say about a fighter when they are high level but don't come from a large famous training camp like McKee? I think that most good fighters don't come from the massive big training camps, if any. You know what I mean? Um, most of them probably have, even the ones that are coming out of there on the way up weren't from there. Do you know what I mean? So most of those guys are not from high, big, massive camps. Those camps might have become big and massive once that fighter became big and massive, you know? Um, so yeah, I most people don't come from big camps, you know? And even when you're there, you don't train with a big camp. You have your own group of guys most of the time. Um, Jacob McDonald says high damage sports don't really fit the Olympics too well. I agree. Yeah, well, that's they try and do it so that you can have those multiple matches. Nico Dedio says, "Do you think Christian Lee is good or his enemies are just kind of average?" I don't know if they're his enemies, but I think you mean adversaries. Nah, he's good, dude. He's fucking good. Like I've seen his fights, and there were fights against some guys that I didn't think. Like I thought, nah, man, these guys are a bit too big for him, etc. And he's a big boy himself. He's deceptively big as well. He's a good fighter. Very good fighter. We had him on the podcast too. We had him on the podcast. We had Martin Ewan on the podcast who fought him as well. So watch those things and you get probably a bit of a better understanding. So Sank says, yeah, I don't think fighting Izzy in the pocket would be smart. Probably not, but Wilness did it and won. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. Jacob McDonald says fighters need to be able to fight quite a few times over the Olympics to find clear medalists. So it need to be changed a lot from what we're used to. Yeah, 100%. Alex Kohler says, why isn't BJJ in the Olympics? I think um I think with BJJ might end up in the Olympics, but I think you're going to find a problem with the similarities between judo and jiu-jitsu and wrestling and no-gi jiu-jitsu for the layperson, right? I do think you'll probably find that, that's the thing. Because what they're always trying to do is take away combat sports, you know what I mean? Like they try to take wrestling out of the Olympics. So I don't know. I don't know. It's very similar. Um, Wolf's Bone says, why'd you stop working with Rob? Like, this is an old one now, dude. Like, this is like, I haven't worked with Rob for, what are we now? Like, maybe a year and a half, dude. Like, it's been a fucking while. Um, and I, like, we owned a couple of gyms together. There was a whole bunch of business stuff we had going on. But at the same time, like I said before, I think we came to, as far as we were going to go. I'm 41 now, and I had my first daughter a year and a half ago, and I have another one on the way. And so there were things I wanted to do, like be with my family, pursue different career opportunities that I didn't, during certain times. And so that was from my end, like that. Like it was, so I sold the gyms to them, and we went on our own separate kind of ways, you know what I mean? And that was that. Dingus Dangus says, that sounds amazing. Your wife's cooking, Fab. Yeah, man, she's fucking good cook. I'll give her that. Hungarian Hustler says, delicious. Um, Zemek says, how are you, Fab, you mad lad? I'm good, mate. Just 14 hours early. Um, Matei Johnson says, hey, Fab, any Aussie fighters coming up that you reckon are UFC championship material in the future? Yeah, there are, man. There are. There was a kid brought to my attention, Isaac Thompson, very, very good fighter. There's a kid coming up, Brad Fulmer, very good. Sione Vekoso, very good. Keep your eyes and ears open for those people. I think those three guys can win belts. There's a couple other people that are gonna really do well that are coming through, but more on them later. Matei says Johnson or Kiwi. There's a whole bunch of good dudes coming out of this region, dude. Like this, all of like the whole thing. I'm not disrespecting anyone, but in particular, like from Brisbane to Melbourne and like Auckland and New Zealand, like that region, that Tasman kind of region, blah blah blah. And I'm going to include Brisbane as well. It's got some really good fighters, man. Going to come out of there, really, really good. Like it's a really good little hub and a good population number of people. Like that you can draw from. That's pretty decent from there. Heavyweight MMA says, liked your interview with Ensign. Thank you, my man. I really appreciate it. Oliver Ekman says, half Nelsons are not fun. No, they're not. If you put in a half Nelson, like imagine you fought some guy on the street that didn't know shit, right? And you sunk both your hooks in and put a half Nelson in, you rape him, dude. You'll rape him. You'll beat it till your mum comes and gets him. Dingus Dingus says, I don't know if this is a dumb question, but have you had any fights, matches in any combat sports, Fab? Been in any wars? Not really. I haven't really been in any wars. Like I've competed in a bunch of different combat sports, and I was not fantastic at anything. Um, I've answered it heaps of times before, but um, yeah, no, but yeah, I have. Like I started doing like Taekwondo and that when I was little, like probably 5 years old. I competed in Taekwondo. Um, and always like mucked around with boxing and that, but I never competed in boxing. In grappling, I've obviously competed in as well. Um, but yeah, but I was never fantastic at any of the stuff. Out of 10, how much do you care about the Olympics and who do you go for? It's not that I don't care for the Olympics, dude, but I just have other shit on. You know what I mean? And I like seeing, like, like of course I want Australia to do well, but I just it depends, Like sometimes I'll follow a certain person if I get to watch the Olympics or a certain team, and I'll kind of just go for them, or I'll watch the boxing, I'll watch a judo, and I have an affinity towards a certain person for whatever reason. I kind of just follow them. Yeah, Oliver Ekman says Fab was a flyweight champion of 3 different organizations. Dingus Dangus, mate. I haven't been a flyweight since I was 12 or something. That would have been the last time I was a flyweight. People, on this note, I'm going to let you all go. Sorry about this, man. I don't know what happened. But join me tomorrow at 11 a.m. please for the podcast with the UFC. We will be watching that. Hopefully, we've got that on point. And thank you so much. We still did an hour and 10 minutes having a good chat with everyone. So thanks a lot, guys. Thank you very, very much. Fab versus Shevchenko for the belt. Shevchenko would hurt me, man. Love you, Fab. Night, mate, says Oliver Ekman. Good day to you, sir. I really appreciate it. Hey, I have a question. In the US, do you guys say mate? Do you say mate, Oliver? Just because I've heard people say it. I don't know. Has that started recently or do people say that? I just want to thank you all again, guys. Big, big thanks. So take care of yourselves. Stay safe during this COVID time. And I will catch up with you guys very, very, very soon. Take care, my friends. Bye bye.